Just a quick rundown of the features and then we'll get into some patches that actually look at these. We've got a polyphony setting which selects between monophonic, duophonic or quadraphonic operation, so 1, 2 or 4 voices. We've got the resonator type, which is a modal mode similar to Elements, a modal synthesis, or sympathetic strings or non-linear and inharmonic strings, which is an extension of Car plus strong synthesis. We've got coarse frequency, we've got the harmonic structure, brightness, dampening, excitation position and attenuators for the CV inputs. Notice that strum trigger input with polyphonic operation, when a trigger is actually received, the module will freeze the current playing voice and let it decay and start a new note on the next voice. And this input's normalised to a step detector on the volt per octave input and a transient detector on the in. The volt per octave is the main frequency control. We've got audio input for the excitation signal. If we're comparing this to Elements from Mutable instruments, this is the left-hand side, that excitation, that noise generation and impulse generation. This input's also normalised to a pulse and burst generator that reacts to note changes on the volt per octave CV input. And then we've got odd and even outputs, which in monophonic mode, these two carry complementary parts of the sound with odd and even numbered partials with a modal resonator, dephased components due to the pickup position and pickup placement in the string resonator modes. In polyphonic mode, this splits the signal into odd and even numbered strings or plates, and actually you get panning between which of these voices and which notes comes from the odd and the even. So we'll start by looking at the resonator types. We're in monophonic mode, which is that green LED which is flashing per note in the top left corner. We're going to look at the odd and even output and splitting that as a stereo signal rather than a single mono signal. And we're going to go through these different resonator types and look at what each mode is doing. Starting with the first mode, this is a modal resonator, like Elements from Mutable instruments. The principle of modal synthesis is to simulate the phenomena of resonance at play in vibrating structures like bars, plates and strings. Each mode corresponds to the harmonics or partials within the spectrum of the sound, and this is modelled by a bandpass filter. The Q factor of the filter determines how sustained the oscillations in the corresponding partials are. Various materials and structures are characterised by different relationships by their frequencies, and this is what Rings is recreating. So we'll start with this sort of bass-like sound, and it's throwing a hell of a lot of bass out. Opening this up a bit with the brightness and dampening, we're going to tune that up. So we'll start with the brightness, and this adjusts the level of higher harmonics in the signal by simultaneously low-pass filtering the exciter signal, which is off, right up to full at 12. And then the dampening filter or Q factor changes beyond that. The dampening is how long these notes last. And the excitation position controls at which point this string or surface the excitation is actually applied. And you can think of this such as which part of a guitar string you pluck near the bridge or near the neck, or which part of a drum you hit in the centre or around the edges of the drum skin. So this sounds like PWM on a square wave oscillator on certain sounds. And then we've got the harmonic structure controlled by the red structure knob, and this controls the frequency ratio between the partials within this modal resonator. Got these lovely smooth changes. Something more string-like. Let's just stop and take a listen to this in stereo. So if I patch my output to be stereo, let's get these partials splitting across the two outputs. Let's keep going with this structure. We've got this lovely stereo spread. Now moving into the second mode, tune this back up. The second mode is a set of sympathetic strings, and string instruments such as a sitar or a sarod make use of the strings that are not directly struck or plucked by the musician, and these are responding to the vibrations on the instruments and add extra overtones and undertones to it. Rings simulates this with a bunch of virtual strings synthesized by comb filters, and this allows for the addition of extra tones to that of the incoming audio signal, and the tuning between these ratio of the strings is what we're altering with the structure. So brightness has the same effect, as does position. Let's move it through the structure. These lovely overtones, let's go with the structure again. So this will small its sound down to mono if we just take the odd output. So the third mode is a non-linear and inharmonic string setting, and this is an extended version of the Car plus Strong algorithm, which includes familiar ingredients such as the tuned comb filter and absorption filter, and some non-familiar ones such as non-linearities and dispersion within an all-pass filter. Lovely noisy breathy sound up top. So those are the different resonator types. Okay, so far we've been looking at rings almost like a little mini Elements voice, although we've got those extra modes and the note overlap and the sort of polyphony in there with these strummed overlapping notes. We've just been using this internal pulse generator. So let's look at using some different inputs and actually make use of this resonator that's actually a processor as opposed to a sound generator in itself and its main use. So let's use that input rather than conveniently just using the internal pulse generator. So here's what I've got coming in. Fun piano loop. So that's a dry sound. I'll now turn up the rings output. I'm in this string mode. So actually play the strum and the volt per octave in, and I'm going to use the pressure points to do that. So moving on to another sound, here's a little bass loop, and here's the dry sound. Do a little synth, some pitch bend. Let's turn up rings' output. And this is in those sympathetic string mode. Let's play that strum and volt per octave in with the current settings. Mix the two together, dry, and then rings. Okay, so let's move on to some drums, and I've got a techno house sort of loop. Here's the dry sound. Foot of the floor, some shuffling, shakers and things in there. Typical sort of house loop. Now here's rings output. It's great for that sort of undertone drone and sort of resonance in the background. Let's mix that with a dry sound. Play around with the volt per octave in the strum. Something a little bit different. Here's some orchestral sounds. With lots of different notes, already resonances from these violins and string instruments and different sounds. They're going to be quite dissonant, some of these resonances, but it can be really useful. So it's turning the dry down and rings up. It's in the sympathetic string mode. We'll use the seesaw mode on braids. Let's just sweep the tuning of this oscillator. Lower LFO style rates. We can affect the resonator with a structure in this modal mode. The amount of dampening. Almost acting like the volume of this resonator with a cleaner saw wave coming through and it's shorter. And the brightness acting like a filter. And you can make an absolutely killer bass line through this using rings to add lots of different overtones that you can modulate and use to act like a filter on top of a basic wave such as a saw. So here's the last audio input that I'm going to use from external sources, and this is a vocal sample. Here's the dry sound. Here's rings. We're in the modal mode, let's play around with the settings. Let's just get some modulation in that position. Get these weird, like mangled chorusy resonances. Sympathetic string mode. Okay, so with something like a music thing modular microphoning module, which has got a contact microphone in it, we can actually use that microphone's output to excite the resonator as well. And this isn't going to be a microphone like someone's singing or on an instrument. I'm going to scratch and rub and tap this contact microphone to actually excite the resonator that way. So here's using a cable. Now with a long dampening setting, they sort of merge to one, but when this is shorter, you can pick those details out. Let's try sympathetic strings. So let's look at the different polyphony and the strumming settings. The first mode is completely monophonic, meaning that all new notes cut off the last note, and you just get a single note ringing. You can hear this in this strummed like sequence I'm sending in. Each new note is cutting off the last. I'll turn up the dampening so you can hear that. Every new note cuts off the last note. Now if I flick into duophonic mode, we get two notes that overlap with each other. Now it doesn't mean we've got two volt per octave ins or two strum ins, but what this does is when a new trigger is apparent on strum or detected from a change in the volt per octave input, this lets the previous note ring and creates a new note to carry on ringing. Now if we put this in stereo with the odd and even outputs, you can hear this splits the voices between the odd and even outputs, creating a lovely stereo image. We'll stick with mono for now. And the fourth mode is a quadraphonic mode. And you can hear those chord textures ring right across 4-note chords strumming in my MIDI sequence. Let's get this in stereo. In this modal synthesis mode, let's have a flick through the sounds. This works in the sympathetic string and the cow plus strong non-linear string mode as well. But those sympathetic strings ring within this mode as well. Get these lovely sort of almost dissonant-like textures from some of those sympathetic string settings. So that's all the features of rings and what the module actually does. As always, hit like and subscribe for more videos every week, and check the Patreon link in the description to see how you can support my channel.